Welcome back. I'm joined by Professor Bruce Pardy, who's a legal scholar and executive director of Rights Probe, as we unpack the recent BC Supreme Court ruling that affirms Indigenous land rights, particularly in Richmond, BC. But again, this could apply at every corner of this country, from sea to sea to sea, as they say.
And in
Anyhow,
particular, any area, sorry, I wanted to
so
say,
go ahead.
in particular, any area where an Aboriginal claim might be successfully made.
Right, right. And there are several areas, like, for example, in my home province of Ontario, like Lake Huron, I believe is the entire lake is under dispute. Like there are many, this is bubbling quite a bit.
Sure.
So in your recent, well, you've expressed this several times. In one of your recent articles, you stated that there are huge red flags, and we just shared this, about having land, or legal rights rather, tied to lineage. Why is that such a problematic position?
Right. So one of the features of the rule of law, in my view and in many other people's view, is blind justice. People will be familiar with this, with the statues of Lady Justice with the blindfold on, and the blindfold signifies that you're not supposed to know, who it is you're talking about. The same laws and rules and rights should apply to everybody without difference, depending upon whether you're rich or poor, or young or old, or black or white, or whatever your circumstances are. Your legal rights are not supposed to depend upon who your parents are, or what genes you carry, or what your culture is. Everybody is the same. But this system that we have is exactly opposite to that. Aboriginal rights do depend entirely upon your lineage and who your parents are and what the history is and what your culture is. Our law recognizes different peoples, plural, instead of applying its laws to people, period. And that is in my view, a terrible way to have a legal system, and it is artificial. I mean, after this amount of time. So let's put it this way: invasion and migration and mixing is the history of humanity. This kind of thing has happened over and over and over again throughout, recorded history. And if the premise was that we were going to try to sort out who is who, hundreds of years after one of these events have happened, then it would be absurd. It wouldn't work. So if you change the scene, if you go somewhere else, my favorite example is the UK, but you could do this anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
In the UK, the Romans invaded in 500 AD or so, and then the Saxons were the dominant power for a while, and then the Normans came on and conquered the place in 1066. Imagine if the UK had different categories of rights for people who were of Roman heritage and Saxon heritage and Norman heritage. That makes no sense. The people are British. The rules apply to everybody who lives there. The same should be true here. There is no such thing, I don't think, anymore, and if there was, who cares, as a pure blood. I mean, are we looking for that idea? Let's take me as an example. I mean, what portion of my English heritage owes something to a portion of my Scottish heritage?
Right.
It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And so, in order to have a free society, you must start with the premise that the same laws and rights apply to everybody without distinction.
Okay, so interesting that you highlighted the UK as an example, because as you're speaking, I'm peeling this onion in my mind. So it's interesting that you point out that example, because it was the English who negotiated mostly, right, these agreements with the Indigenous. So if they didn't come from a culture where this was a thing, why have it here?
Well, at the time, this was probably a pragmatic solution, And at the time, when these things originally happen, there are two groups of people. And the people who are there first, understandably, want to, to make the invaders go back, and
Right.
to maintain the memory that the place belongs to them. Fair enough. We would react that way if somebody invaded Canada today without permission. But if that happens, and then hundreds of years pass, and you get a new reality where the people who came at one time mix with the people who came another time, and along with the people who came after that,
Right.
eventually the people are indistinguishable from each other and should be, certainly in the eyes of the law. So we get into a real trap when we try to go back and say, well, you're more that group of person than you are that group of person. Therefore, we're going to put you in this category and you're going to go over here and you're going to be a representative of the people who did this, even though you weren't alive at the time, because even though you don't have any genes, I mean, it gets to be ridiculous.
Right.
But we insist upon it because we're used to it, and in addition, it is in our Constitution.
Okay, we'll be right back.